Good evening. My name is Marilyn Donahue. Welcome to this evening's version of the Finance Committee meeting. It's May 15th, 2013. Tonight's meeting was focused on the budget cuts that were discussed last night between the Town Administrator, the Board of Selectmen, and proposed cuts from the School Committee. This was the cuts as they were presented to us. Very painful cuts. There was some discussion over whether we actually can afford to do these. It's a very difficult time for us, but we have accepted and we will vote on the budget next week. But we did hear the presentation for what the impact of the approximately $481,000 cuts to the town side of government will be. Overall, we were surprised to see that the employees that the town has lost since fiscal year 2011 is close to 14 employees. We take these as FTE, full-time equivalent employees, as there are part-time hourly people involved there too. This will cut several positions, and there will be several other positions that are vacant now that will not be filled. This will be discussed at town meeting. You'll have a chance to weigh in on this. None of us are happy about this current budget, but it's what we look like we're going to have to be forced to live with. We also discussed the upcoming articles for the special town meeting that will impact this year's budget. We're talking about how we're going to fund a much-needed ambulance, the purchase of a new ambulance for the EMS. We talked about that there will be parking kiosks put on the onset pier for this summer season, which is something that we've all hoped for quite a while. We had discussion on how that program will run, and we had discussion on the purchase of 5 new police cruisers and how that will be funded. We had some minor discussion about the sewer enterprise fund. We're think very favorably of the fact that the Board of Selectmen have requested a forensic audit of that account. It's been a great concern to this committee that we have not had actual numbers to review in the 5 years that I've been sitting here. So we look forward to receiving that report, although that will be sometime in the future. And finally, the other priority that we have is to entice members of the community to come and join our committee. We will have at least 3 vacancies come June, and we do need any interested members to come meet with us. You're welcome to attend a meeting. We're generally here at the Multi-Service Center on Wednesday evenings at 6:30. Our meetings are posted at Town Hall and on the website. We would love to have members of the public come, and if you have any interest, please contact us. Thank you.
Good evening, Laura.
It's 20 minutes to 7. We'll formally call the meeting to order.
What are you doing?
Could I have a roll call from the clerk?
7 members are present.
Do we have anyone from the outside that wishes to make any comments, or any of our visitors? Any comments? No? Okay. All right. Let's get on to the business. Larry, you said you had made
Yep.
copies?
Yep. That's the budget. Thank you.
Yeah, Kelly. Okay, good.
That's the budget.
Can I have that back?
You need a copy?
Email, right? Kelly sent it.
Yeah.
Well, but I made up copies in case everybody got copies?
No, I don't.
All right, well, here's some copies.
Okay.
And then I've got, I also have in front of me, did you bring these?
I did.
So what is
And I
your...
saved money by putting them on one sheet.
Well, you know what? I didn't save money. So these are bigger for us older folks. And there's a copy of that. You're going to need
Thank
that.
you.
We're going to need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and that's gives
Okay.
Kelly one as well.
Okay. All right. Mr. Town Administrator, would you like to do your report?
Okay, what I think what we can do is go, the first part, everybody has the packet, yours is gonna look different, but it's the PowerPoint. And this is what was presented to the joint meeting of the Board of Selectmen and Finance Committee.
Does somebody, do we have some extra
School
copies
Committee, excuse me.
for,
We might,
for Mr. Slavin and
Yes.
Mrs. Smith?
let me see, hold on.
Did I want to look at it?
Budget copies, that's mine. I got 3 budgets, if anybody needs those, and then I don't know what I have.
Oh, I have one of these, that Derek did, one of these here.
Back to correction.
Okay.
Just give those to the guests.
Yeah, okay.
No, I'm back to correction the budgets.
You're welcome.
Very good job. Oh, you did not better.
Give them to them if they need any of those.
I've officially crossed the line. You only win whatever.
Oh my
My big
God.
purchase.
I
So I
would
didn't
never, I
read the
would
budget.
refuse to use glasses unless it's necessary.
They were less for pennies.
I think it's necessary.
They're cheaper at pennies.
If anybody got bad vision, I got some extra copies of the bigger ones as well.
Do you think we'd admit to that?
She just put on glasses, I think we're having a trend
I
going.
bought them today, special for doing the budget. Probably on camera, I'm not gonna face that
Go
way.
for it.
All right,
All right.
Derek?
Yep.
All right, so to follow up the joint meeting of the Board of Selectmen and School Committee, the first slide is just the title. The second one is the impact of the cuts. You'll see the department and what the cuts were, and just a rough outline of the impact. So the first one is Police Department. The total amount of budgetary cuts are $231,684. That's the equivalent of 3 full-time employees. There'd be 2 patrolmen, 1 administrative staff. Speaking to some of the police, it'd be roughly, you go down to about 4 officers per shift to cover 22,000 year-round, 44,000 summer residents, reductions on the trainings, and there'd be the cruiser replacement program or the leases, which runs a little over $99,000 a year, would be deducted from that as well. The next department.
So that's 5%? Reduction?
About 4.4 million, roughly 5%.
Okay.
If you went through on the library, you would have $107,198 deducted. This part is my estimation from it. It's 1.5 full-time employees. We're most likely you look at decertification according to the director, and end of most programs, including some of the teen and tweens programs. Out of the administration office, the total cut is $50,373. You have 1 full-time employee, which would be the financial analyst position. Out of accounting, $32,755, which would be 0.75 full-time equivalent, I should say, which is the assistant town accountant. Municipal maintenance, $35,472, which is the equivalent of 1 full-time equivalent employee. Some of the items here are the end of private road plowing and grading, weekend trash and beach cleaning ends. The private road plowing, we know that's part of the snow and ice budget, which is legally allowed to go into deficit, but that would save, even when it goes legally allowed to go into deficit, you still have to pay those dollars. It would save roughly $25,000 per storm. That's whether the storm, is a few inches, and probably the savings go up depending on the severity of the storm.
I have a question on that article here. So if we have a snow plowing, if we have a snowstorm, and we have folks that are living on a private road that we're not going to plow any longer,
Right.
and they need emergency assistance, whether it be fire, whether it be through an ambulance, we're just going to leave these people out?
No, what would happen then is the ambulance or the fire service would have to call one of our plows that's currently out, and they would follow them into there.
At which lawsuit do you think that will start?
Well, I would say it would be the losing one because we've never accepted the Mass General law to plow private streets.
I'm talking about the lawsuit, why they call it the snow plow. And the delay that came because he's on the other side of the town. That's not service at all, Derek. I don't think you'd be happy if your wife and your child on an unaccepted street and you needed to get help and the answer was, we'll have to call a snowplow first.
It's the same one I got from our fire and ambulance department when my wife was near due during the blizzard. And I said, I'm worried about my street not having been plowed out. And they said they would send the plow with the ambulance.
Okay.
How many miles is that? What are we talking about?
I don't know off the top of my head, but we have, I think we'd have to just look it up real quick.
Well, yeah. Excuse me? Go
Can I
ahead.
ask my question?
Sure, certainly you can.
When I look at the town accountant and then I go ahead and look at the treasurer, I know that we voted on an article at town meeting. Where is that, the impact of that article? Is that,
You would see the increase in the treasurer wages.
well, I see the increase in the treasurer wages of $11,274, but I see the town accountant dropping off by 32. And the savings, I believe we estimated was somewhere around 36,000?
Could be around 36,000 on there, but some of them were brought over into the town accountant expenses to
Okay.
pick those up. And the increase to the wages on the treasurers is 6,774, and the expenses is additional 4,500 to pick up
Okay.
more tax title.
All right, that works for me.
Question, Minister?
Yes.
Two questions, actually. Are you saying that we don't really have liability or responsibility to plow private roads? Just asking you for, I'm just worried about the legality of it too. It's written that, if it's a private road, they're supposed to really take care of it themselves, am I correct?
Yeah, that's actually
Okay,
true.
all right.
However, I'm sorry, Marilyn Smith.
Thank you.
However, there's a 4-page document, how to get a road accepted, and they've been releasing the contractors from that without requiring them to get the roads accepted. So as a result, many people in this town don't know that they are living on unaccepted streets. So this first snowstorm will be a really exciting time when you don't see the snowplow come by because, gee, too bad, not an accepted street. I live on an unaccepted street. I know it's not accepted. I've been in this town since 2002. I've lived on one accepted street. The town's 4-page document to get a street accepted and a release of financial liability of contractors who put in a development borders on criminal because the fact that the people that are buying a house don't necessarily know they're buying on an unaccepted street. So they got a lot of surprises coming this fall. And from my point of view, and I'll put it here, Wareham is nothing but a sand dune on the edge of the ocean. It's the people that live in this town that make the town of Wareham. You export full taxes out of everybody, and yet, all of a sudden, can't do it. That's really quite an interesting position.
To follow up on my second question, people who come down here on the weekends and I used to do it all the time. So you come down 8, 12 weekends a year, enjoy your cottage, enjoy your house, you still pay full taxes. Now your beaches aren't going to be clean, which is the reason you come down. And in these small communities where they have a lot of nighttime people walking and eating, and now on the weekends, which is the busiest time of year, they're not going to pick up the trash in the center of town. You think that's... I think the summer people, this is really something that you rely on summer people to spend money down here, to eat down here, to do a lot of things down here, and not having a clean beach, and the weekend trash, around like the pier, the restaurants, the center of Onset, and Swift's Beach, many other places like that. Now what's the garbage going to just pile up on the weekends, which is the busiest time of foot traffic in those areas. And you want summer people, you want their real estate taxes for year round. They're only down here for a short time. A lot of other communities to move to. I think this is sad, maybe necessarily, but sad. That's all I get to say.
Go ahead, Madeline.
Before we start picking this apart anymore, what was the feedback from the Board of Selectmen with regard to how these changes were put forward, these cuts?
They voted on the cuts that night, and they'll be discussing the budget on Tuesday night.
Okay. With respect to my fellow committee members' concerns about liability, actual liability in municipalities, and don't quote me on this, but we're all lawsuit crazy, but with regard to road maintenance, I think it's very, very low, and I think it's also very limited under Mass General Law. So I will take David's point to that it's very difficult for the residents, but I think as an actual dollar amount liability, that's less of a concern, for what it's worth.
Mr. McDonald?
One of the things that we've discussed over and over again is guidance from the Board of Selectmen, and they've given their guidance. I'm not necessarily saying that I agree with everything on here, but the other thing we've had an issue with and it goes back to the meetings with the department heads. If you're not gonna cut here, where are you gonna cut? That's gonna be the issue. People that are faced, these are the ones, the guidance from the Board of Selectmen, this is the cuts they made. I don't like them, but you only have so much money to go around, and unless we're gonna start growing trees with money on it, which we aren't, we have to cut somewhere. So, but also, I will say this, it doesn't matter whether you agree or not, it's at the point where we're no longer talking about cutting a department. We're talking about, if you aren't gonna cut that department, where are you going to cut?
Yeah, but, through you, Madam Chair,
Yes.
there's dollar wise and penny, you've heard all these things. Okay, hear me out. $35,000 municipal maintenance. You get one lawsuit on this road issue. You get one lawsuit, someone cutting themselves on the beach because you don't clean it. You get, some kind of rabbit animal eating the trash in the center of town place. I mean, you're talking about, this is I think there's more liability in the $35,000 in municipal maintenance than there is in anything else in here. And I agree that we have to cut. Don't get me wrong, you guys. I know you agree to the cut, but I just think that I think that we should maybe look or send out a message that maybe that isn't the greatest, dollars to cut. Maybe there's something else we can cut. Just take a look. I'm not saying there is or there isn't. I didn't do this, so I didn't. But I'm just telling you now. I wouldn't want to be a selectman in the summer meetings when the summer people come down. Because they're going to pack the joint and go crazy, because that's what they come here for. Plus, I saw something the other day. It says, how can we bring money and visitors to Wareham? Oh shit! Well, I go there. The dirtiest beaches in the Cape.
But they're free.
So that's another question. If the parking on the pier would pay for it, but that's another day. It's another day.
Can I respond?
No, Mrs.
Sam had his.
Sam, Mr. Gray?
I basically agree with Larry. None of these cuts are very pleasant. As you look at that, the library's decertification, I think, is really a shame. And all of these cuts are tough. But I think you've got to really think about where the other cuts would be if you're not going to take this cut. I do have one particular question of Derek, and that is in the accounting area. When you get through this, my understanding is that this savings of $32,000 won't really affect the level of accounting that we're getting in the finance committee and in the management. Is that correct?
I'd say it's the same level we've had since October, actually before October. If I can be blunt.
Okay. I just, I don't want to slip back, and for the first 2 years I was on the finance committee, we didn't get any figures, so I would hate to see that start over again. That's my only point.
I would think that's-
I think all of these cuts are sad, but I not sure where you go, and I think one of the things that we should really think about, if people think there are some other areas that can be cut, then I think we can do something with these, but I think until we figure out what other areas can be cut, I think it's pretty hard to fiddle with these.
Mrs. Donahue, you next.
Just want to confirm, out of these cuts, when we're talking about losing full-time equivalents, we know that's not a position not being filled for the financial analyst and town accountant. The police department, are those also positions that we're just not going to fill?
The 2 patrolmen will not be filled, the admin is a live person.
All right, so we have a cut there. And municipal maintenance, is that a cut?
And that would be a cut, where we have a retirement out of there, and there'll be a shift of personnel, we will not refill that.
So it's not a cut. We're losing someone, but we're not cutting them.
If you're trying to ask, it's the cheapest way to do it. We're not gonna pay unemployment on it.
That's where I'm trying to go. Part of where I'm trying to go.
That's a good thing.
So out of all of this that we're losing, we're actually going to only lay off one admin at the police department.
One admin of the police department.
Oh, and the library, let's not,
The
I can't talk
library,
about the library yet.
the full-time equivalent from the assessors, and the .63 full-time equivalent from the harbor masters.
Oh, okay, so there are
Our
more
current
cuts down there.
unemployment is running about $3,000 a month.
I got Mr. McDonald before you. Okay, I'm sorry.
I don't know,
Are you
I'm over being,
calm down?
I'm over being mad at Dom at this point.
Okay, all right.
I love you, Larry, don't worry
I
about
know that.
If you two hug, I'm leaving.
It's, I understand that we waited a long time for the selectmen to weigh in, past the point where we wanted them to weigh in. We waited from December until April, no luck. Now they weigh in, and June 18th is, well, it ain't that far away. And we've asked them for their input, they've given our input. We may not agree with it, but we don't have anywhere else, unless we want to sit down and make our own little cuts and compare them. And I certainly don't want, with the time frame that we have left to get ready for this town meeting, I think we're overstepping what we should be doing at this point.
I don't think we have the expertise that Mr. Sullivan has.
I was trying to be nice about it, Donna, do you mind?
No,
I'm not,
to make those cuts.
excuse me, I didn't mean it that way. That anyone did anything wrong or anyone cut anything wrong. I just think that multiple opinions from multiple people
I
is
agree.
intelligence, okay? So,
That's how you
when
get
you wanna
diversity.
throw out multiple, everyone has an opinion.
Yep.
Some opinions might weigh out, someone, geez, I didn't think of that. Geez, I didn't think of that. So that's all I'm doing, stating an informal opinion, which everyone else is likely to do. I didn't say anyone did a bad job, but did they think of what could happen? A lot of people do a lot of things they don't think. Did they think about the bottom line? Sometimes the bottom line is not the correct answer. Okay, you accountants love bottom lines, well, I don't. Okay, I run my business knowing the bottom line thing. You number pushers love that crap. I don't, and I don't think it's right all the
The
time.
next one's bean counter,
Okay.
if you wanna go there as well.
Whatever, but that's how I feel about it, okay?
Mr. Trudell?
Particularly left-handed ones.
Mrs. Couture sincere regrets that she's unable to attend tonight.
Oh,
And she does apologize for that.
okay. All right. Derek, would you care to go on? And before he goes on, I think when we get to the town beaches and that, I think Wareham's gonna dig hard and they'll come up with volunteers. They came up with that little mob last year. And I'll tell you, we'll get it done somehow.
I hope so.
I think we
It's a
will.
shame.
I think we will. But you've gotta do what we have to do. Go ahead, Mr. Sullivan.
At the risk of extending the conversation,
Oh, gosh.
they're talking about a money tree, there's no such thing as a trash tree. The trash is brought to the locations. We were looking at adopting a carry-in, carry-out trash policy. If you brought that to the beach, you certainly can bring it.
Oh, I agree. I was more thinking of the seaweed, that type of stuff. That's what I meant. Yeah. But as far as the trash barrels and that kind of stuff,
The trash.
I wasn't thinking so much of the trash barrels on the beaches. I were more in the center of towns because you do get a lot of foot traffic with restaurants and people eat and they walk around. They put it in the trash. You know, there's like 4 or 5 barrels. And believe me, one weekend you should see what. Yeah, they get especially on the holiday weekends because there are a lot of people. That's what I meant. I mean, you know, like you said, volunteers. I'll do something. I have a dumpster right in the center of town in one of the buildings. You know, I'll empty the barrel out in the square. You don't have a problem with that, but I'm just saying that people think about what I said. That's all.
We can hug later.
Okay, Bob.
Yeah, I was just going to reinforce Derek's point that we travel frequently, and more and more places have the carry-in, carry-out policy. You go to a lot of parks, state, they just don't have the facilities anymore.
Yeah.
If there's a barrel, how many times have you seen trash overflowing and around the edge of it?
All the
If
time.
there's no barrel, people won't dump it. There will be still some, but certainly not to the extent. So I applaud you
You
for
could be
looking in
100%
that
right,
direction.
Robin. Could be 100% right.
They had a rhyme for it. Let no one say to your shame that all was clean here until you came. So, that was at one of the parks we were
We had
at.
take nothing but pictures, leave nothing but footprints. That was ours.
I worked at a park too long to
Yeah.
remember that.
I know the Boy Scout thing or something.
The other would be, and what I'm calling is contractual obligation offsets. We all know that even when you're reaching level funding, it's truly a decrease because you have steps and some of the contractual obligations. So although this amount is only $23,689, it's 1.63 full-time equivalents. Realistically, you'd probably be looking at closer to 40,000. So altogether, the total cuts from the FY13 level funding is $481,171 and is 8.88 full-time equivalents. If you go to the next slide, you'll see the FY12 budgeted. The asterisk is, when you look and you'll see in the budget that we put in the warrant, that includes everything we bring in for grants, if we've received reimbursements or the extra funds and such, so you'd see a much higher number. But the FY12 budget is $10,318,321. I figured, well, to be honest, if we brought it in at the over $11 million budget and started claiming a $1.5 million cut, I don't think anybody would buy into that one. But that's, so if you go by the level funded budget, then the FY13 projected budget, which is lower than the FY12 budgeted amount. The third item is the FY14 with cuts, which is $9,782,939. And actually, altogether, between the FY12 budgeted and the FY14 is a difference of $535,382, or 5.19% of the entire budget. So, the fourth slide is how many employees have we lost, and these are full-time equivalents. It does not include EMS, because they're the offset receipt. It does not include water pollution control facility as their enterprise fund, and does not include the grant employees like CETA. It's, we don't budget them in here, so that's really, we wouldn't include those. But when you break it down, altogether, since the FY11 high, if you will, of 122.25 full-time equivalents, we're down to 108.32 full-time equivalents, or a total difference of 13.93, or just under 12%.
Question, Madam Chair?
Yes.
Is the, as you can see, everyone can, it's been going up every year. Is the prediction even more drastic for FY15?
I would say there will be no relief in FY15, so that's.
So you feel like number will be up even more, huh? Okay, thank you.
Got the schools, you want me to do the schools?
Yeah, the independent third party to do this, if you want to.
These two ones in school?
Yeah,
Okay.
I went to that meeting, and because nobody could make it from the school committee, I thought I'd go over their slides. And I can't answer questions as well as Mr. Sweat and Mr. Dr. Rabinovich, but it shows the impact of the cuts by school, and you can read through that. It's pretty significant. It certainly, they're moving 11.33 out of the central office. They're taking 3.5 out of the deacus, 4.83 out of the high school, and the middle school is 1, and the Minot Forest Elementary School is 2 full-time. I really don't want to go over their budget if I don't have to, because but they've lost since FY 11, 35.35 total full-time equivalents. That's significant as well. And I don't think that anybody came out of that meeting last week happy.
No.
I think you guys, what was the agreed upon, 62.5? And so it was not a pleasant meeting, and I don't think anybody wants to make the cuts, but this is what we have to do at this point. We just don't have the revenue at this point. So.
Agreed.
Anything good?
Okay,
I have a question, if I may, Madam Chair.
yes.
Okay, now we felt that the school was a higher percentage, it was gonna be a higher percentage cut than the administration budget. Am I correct, Eric, in saying that? Didn't have a formula that was gonna be, what was that number that was made up, was it?
63.5. Are you talking about the 62.5, 37.5?
Okay. Well,
Yeah, 63.5 and 36, and 36.5.
Yeah.
okay. Well, okay, then I don't have a calculator with me, and maybe someone else can brainstorm this. But administration in the town then, they lost, 8.8. If you do the 8.8 and the 35 employees, that number doesn't seem right, that number's awful up on me. I don't know if it's just, the dollar and cents is different, but if you do it by number of employees, that is 6337. You have 8.8, 13.39 versus 35.35.
Well, that would be assuming everybody made the same amount of money.
That's
That's what I was getting
Yeah,
at.
but that's the
That's pretty
difference,
close.
that's the makeup of the shortage, just the shortage, that they took the 63.5% the school would absorb, and the 36.5.
All right, so then you just go to, then it's even worse. If you go to just FY14, it's 8.88 versus 11.33. That number's not anywhere close to 67.37 either.
Well,
Whatever, that's okay, just bringing up my facts.
The one thing I don't like about facts is that you're talking about statistics. It's a totally different animal.
Okay, excuse me, statistics.
okay, next.
What is that?
Yeah.
Tom
Derek, do you have any more?
wanted to say.
Oh, I'm sorry,
I
John.
have a question. Within the budget that remains, how much money is in there for major maintenance, such as roofs and things of that nature?
Such as, I'm sorry,
They've talked about the roof on the library and other things of significant nature that we're either deferring the maintenance on or we're going to do it. Is there anything in the budget that anticipates or takes care of things of
Capital?
no, not capital. This is just to maintain the assets that we have. Then the next question is, what do we have in there for capital expenditures? And the third question is, what are we spending to add to the efficiency of the way various departments are run?
I think
Specifically the police department.
0, 0, 0.
Well, this budget is, we're getting down to a level that says, okay, this is the budget and it looks balanced, but the budget doesn't include a lot of things. It should, expenditures that it should. So we really have not totally left the town in a better situation.
Okay,
Okay, go first.
go ahead.
Well, my hand was up before yours,
Okay.
because yours is always up. I
Mine's
also want to
always-
add to Tom's list, the other thing that's missing from this budget is no contribution to the stabilization fund.
Well, yeah.
So we need to be very clear about what's not in this budget. There's no maintenance, we have no stabilization, we have no capital assets. Larry, you can add to that. What else don't we have in this budget?
Well, it's not that we don't have it in this budget. One of the things I think we need to listen to, or we should be hearing, is a special town meeting, where I think some of those capital needs, which is one of our, we rejected the budget for several reasons, one being capital. And I believe that's gonna be addressed in this special town meeting that is going to occur at the same time. As far as maintenance, don't quote me on this, but I believe the conversation that I had with the library was that the municipal maintenance had the supplies, but they didn't have the manpower to do the repairs. Am I wrong on that, or?
You don't, at this point, you don't even have the supplies
Okay.
for it, but we don't have the manpower to do it, to maintain stuff. We just have, if you look at it out there, there was one time for one of the days, we had a total of 3 people in the municipal maintenance department. You also have people that have contracts who can have over 40 days of vacation. So there's the staff that we have in there, just because we've got people doesn't mean that they're on there working.
And how are you going to address stabilization in 15? Because I think that is critical for the town as a whole. If you're going, and you didn't take from stabilization, but you didn't contribute to stabilization. So what's the balance that we have in there now?
520,000 and a few dollars, I think it's 847.
Well, that's better than I thought.
So we have that in there
Go get that
now.
car now.
What I, wait till later to be happy.
Oh, God.
My thought process with it, which I'd like to bring forward, is that whatever you have for free cash in the next year, because we cannot afford to budget in our operating budget for the stabilization fund. You have the free cash, you submit, we pull a number that we believe is the correct one. We've been using 150 for all these years. So let's say the first at least 150,000 of the free cash gets moved over into the stabilization fund. The rest of that free cash is then used for capital items.
That makes sense.
That's a policy.
Is that a policy
That's one of the policies I proposed on it.
So in the selectmen of,
That's not been addressed
Discussed.
in them.
okay.
Okay.
But it's good to have policy, and then, you know, at least when you're trading on,
We need
Be a
to,
policy, be a standby.
instead of the,
Thank you, Tom.
there's always the option to have, not really option, but sort of the idea to grab the free cash into your operating budget. And that's the one thing we can't do. And the way we have flip-flopped, because we're not funding the 150 in our operating, and we're doing it through free cash, but we don't have the money to fund $150,000 a year. You look at it and you say, you cut an additional, let's say, 3 people on there, and again, what additional services are being lost to fund this?
Just for background, we only started funding our stabilization
3 years ago?
3 or 4, I was gonna say more than that because we have
Mhm.
525. I thought we only had 350, but it's only been within the last 5 years. We were down to 0 when I started on the finance committee. So
It was cleaned out at one
it
point.
was wiped out. So I'm very, very proud of us. That is one thing we've done. We've built it up and we're not gonna touch it as bad as it is right now. And we need that money there.
Well, it helps for bonding issues too, to have something.
If you're going to bond, it would help for bonding issues. Right now, we haven't been going out truly to bond. We've been using state house notes,
Okay.
or we'll be doing bands. So I'm not anticipating preparing notes until we fully funded the project. Some of the things you see, and I'm sorry to go off on a little bit of diatribe, but in October, we had the article for the capital purchases. You had school roof, you had some of the buses, the cars, the library. Well, not all of those get done at the same time. So if you voted those in at the fiscal year and not all of them have been completed, you need to borrow against that with a band, so a bond anticipatory note. So that's one of the things that we'll be doing, and I believe Mr. Foster will be asking to bring it before the selectmen in the next few weeks. So just so people understand what some of that process is. Because you don't want to borrow against it until you know exactly what your costs have been, so you're not penalized on that as well.
Tired of writing.
But just to make it quite clear, even though we're not seeing anything coming out of stabilization right now, we're gonna be looking, we are definitely gonna be looking for cruisers. We're gonna be looking for
Ambulance.
ambulances, number one. So,
Who's gonna tell us about that? And then
Yeah.
they got
Yeah.
one.
The ambulance, I can explain on a good note. The cruisers, if we're going to purchase cruisers or any sort of vehicles for the police, the only spot we have available is the stabilization fund. So we have to figure out what it really means to us. It is the only thing. We don't have the money next year for it to borrow or to lease. And it's getting to be to the point where if you wait through another cycle, there could be real issues. So
What's the cost of a police vehicle? Or if you're gonna
I'm
put it-
getting the quotes, but I figured about 200,000 for 5 of them. And part of that would be turning in some of the old ones to get roughly $20,000 back on there. So give it 220 for 5. So maybe 44,000 each.
Could we do it over time, or is that something, I know it's probably cheaper, it's gonna be cheaper much longer to get,
Part of the things I thought was if we bought these outright, we have the $49,000 now in the police budget under capital.
Right.
This is the last year's payment of that. That means next year we could then use that to borrow roughly for at least 3 cruisers. So you have a little bit of a plan being put together, which takes you through FY16. You know, the key indicators in life, as they always say, the stock market, runs 6 months ahead of the economy, and municipalities run 2 years behind it. So that would
Okay.
be, so for the stabilization fund, I would be looking for the cruisers. That's where that's the only choice that we have.
we have to approve and remove from the stabilization fund?
You know, it would have to be voted out of there, so it would bring you down to about a $300,000 value.
I like that look on his face. All right, so tell us about the, I'm sorry.
The ambulance, if you go to your budget document and turn to page 5 of 5, and you see the EMS, emergency medical services wages, and then you see expenses underneath. Actually, what should be, putting this all together, there should be a subline under expenses for capital. And that would be the ambulance. Right now, a 3-year lease for the ambulance as requested by the director of the EMS, and that's with the buyout at the end, is looking at $78,000 to $80,000.
Brand new?
That's a brand new one. So, by increasing the EMS expenses, if you will, with the subset of capital on there, you've now increased the receipts. Our EMS brings in about 1.1 to 1.15 every year of net revenues. So as it is an offset receipt, you can increase that expenses or wages without going into the general fund budget or having to budget that. However, it does reduce what you would have for free cash the next year, because that money would have mingled into the actual general fund and then gone through the cycle and gone to free cash, hopefully.
You're gonna lease this for 3 years?
Yes.
Is there a buyout at the
it'd be
end?
$1, isn't
It would be a $1 buyout, so we could actually start maintaining our service with this, or maintaining our ambulances, I should say, with.
Yeah, since there's a 5-year for the first refurbishment, we might actually be able to get something done in that area.
Okay.
Tom's got a question.
Tom, I'm sorry.
My recommendation would be is we don't do that until we see a cost performance review of EMS. We know whether this thing is making money or not making money.
It's not making money.
You make a ton of money.
Well, no, okay, listen,
No,
it's not covering its entire cost because you have the cost of employee benefits. That's why it's not an enterprise fund. If you throw the employee benefits on top of the cost of operating this, then they're not an enterprise fund because I think they're on the downside. But from our standpoint, I really believe, you know, that's revenue we don't give up because it is covering a great deal of cost. But
it's got to cover it all. I mean, why do we invest in a leaking ship? Give it to the fire department wants it. Give it to them. They don't have any 2.5% problem.
Yes, they do. They operate within that percent.
They operate within?
Yes, they do.
Well, I'm sorry, I misunderstood that.
If you look at the costs, if you did it from the FY13, the offset receipts amount are $848,330. Right now, the employee benefits from health and the FICA, those items for them are $89,000. The retirement, you could probably give them a factor of, let's say 8,000 per employee, that's 64. So now you're looking at 154,000, which leaves you 147,000 of profit, if you would, on
then
there.
it does cover it.
Now, if you then were able to have an ambulance that's running and not having other
In the
towns
shop.
coming in,
Mm-hmm.
and part of that, I think I wanted to spell one of the things, it was once said that when the ambulances from other towns come in, we pay them. We don't pay them, they just get paid for that call from whether it's the health or maybe they don't get paid. That's something you would want to do.
But I don't mean to bog this down, but what's the receivables for the EMS?
The past due on there?
Yeah,
You have, for 11 years, you have roughly $600,000. It averages $50,000 a year.
and how's that trending?
It's been maintaining at $50,000.
And so they're not buying they're not able to float their new equipment. They're not able to continue to equip themselves from the revenue that their
You
overall picture.
You have a sort of the death roll. You now have where the ambulances aren't running anymore. They don't run, you don't receive revenue, but you're still paying people.
So, but they're not making enough money to buy the damn new ambulance.
They are making
Yes,
enough
they are.
money, and
You just said that.
you know. and
If
Yeah.
you budget it this way, they are making enough money to do it.
What we've been doing is bleeding them. We've been taking their money, their excess money, and we've been putting it into
Just
free cash.
show it to me as a standalone thing,
Excuse me.
and with some history to it. I mean, I just don't want to see one snapshot. Just some history.
Could I make a suggestion? Because as Larry's pointed out several times, we don't have a lot of time on this budget. I think that's an ideal project for the Finance Committee to look into, to take that little piece, come up with the history, show what it is. Because to me, this just seems like, if I say an accountant's trick, there's a lot
Oh,
of people
please,
who are going
would
to
you
get
stop
mad at it.
with-
It's this side of the table, Larry, I'm sitting over here. But because what we're getting is we get the benefit of the free cash that comes in because we get their excess receivables. We only budget for $165,000. Anything over that, the town gets to use. So now we're putting into that budget the amount of money to cover their capital needs, the ambulance. If we budget more realistically, what that means is they get the ambulance. Hopefully the receipts even go up more because now they can go on more calls. And then we get the extra over that.
Yes.
But
Speaking of accounting, you're still
let me
talking?
just finish. So what I was going to propose is that for the next budget cycle, early on, that we should, say subcommittee, but some of us should look at the numbers. We should put them together. We can get the numbers from the town. We should do the analysis on it and determine if it makes sense or if it doesn't make sense. We won't have the numbers for this new ambulance yet. But then it becomes a political decision. That's the trick, because I was of the opinion of why are we doing this? Why are we running an EMS? Because it won't matter to, when I call an ambulance, I don't care whether it comes from Wareham, Marion, or Bridgewater, as long as it's there as fast as it can be and gets me to the hospital as fast as it can be. And my insurance company's going to pay whether they pay Wareham or wherever. So to our citizens, they're still going to get ambulance service. So we need, that becomes a bigger issue beyond this committee. That's not up to us to decide whether it makes sense to have it locally. But let's get the numbers together, like you said, so we know what we're dealing with and we're not just making shots in the dark. I'm done.
Mr. McDonald?
Meanwhile, back at the ranch, we're talking about one ambulance here. We got one ambulance that is completely down, correct?
We have one that the state will not allow to go on the road except for transport.
And we have one that sometimes runs, is that correct? So we're talking about one ambulance here. If we were operating with both ambulances, is there a plural ambulance I or something like that? If we were operating with both of them, then we'd have additional income, because we're gonna have to give part of that, or not give, but allow other towns
Lose
to
part of
bill.
it, yeah.
So we're at a point in time where we're talking about the end of the road budget here. This is it. And now we're talking about one ambulance, and we probably need two ambulances. But let's not be greedy at this point. I think that's more income. We could, the 1 point, whatever it is probably coming from two ambulances, I'm guessing.
When you have it, and then when you have ambulances working, it also gives you other opportunities to seek revenue. You know, there's
We can
things
go to
that
other
we need
towns,
to
too.
look into is, go to other towns. We can also look into whether it's entirely legal under our license as transporting as well, which is, to be blunt, is big bucks. But I don't know if we can truly do that or not.
Okay.
That's one of the things we're looking into. Some say yes, some say no. My idea is always to get the true answer on it before you enter into anything like that.
Before they do that, is this in the special town meeting? We have-
Yes, what I'm seeking for in the special town meeting, because it's a capital item, is the authorization to purchase the ambulance.
Okay.
Then it will be funded in the FY14 budget, so we would not be able to do the purchasing until July 1. Then as well, actually, we might be able to do it the 2 weeks earlier, if you will, because it takes 6 months to build an ambulance, and they usually will not, we will not be able to get an ambulance until 6 months after you do the initial order. So every delay is
It's
critical.
critical.
Cash out every
It's
day.
critical. Yes, Mr.
So
McDonald?
when we get without the ambulance, do we have fewer employees?
No.
no, we saw the same. We only have 2 people on per shift.
Okay, but now we're gonna have 2 ambulances, or we're gonna start to have 3 people on per shift?
You have people that are on call. And I would love to have 3 people on shift, because what people don't know is when our ambulances transport, they go, let's say they go out to the farthest reaches of Wareham. Now they come back, you know, it's a long time, go to Toby. They have to finish filling out their paperwork at the hospital. Sometimes for certain things, by the regulations under which they're under, they will have to transport to Providence, maybe even Boston. That means we don't have an ambulance on the road, even when we have one working. So you have to call people in.
Call other towns
Mhm.
or backup.
Not just other towns, some of our people are on call as well, so they'll come in, and that's overtime. But a couple of the runs can cover their costs as well.
When we look at this, we'll figure out how many people, what the statistics are in terms of.
There's 8 people that they have staffed full-time. There's also people that they can call in, they're on an on-call list besides them.
One final question. Is the $70,000 ambulance, is that a Cadillac, or is that the basic
I'd say
ambulance?
The Cadillac of ambulances could probably run you up to $500,000 to $1 million. This is a $220,000 ambulance.
It's $220,000.
Yeah, I would say
What's the low end? What's the jitney?
$220,000.
It's the lowest. You can go?
You could buy a used one out there if we could find that. Some people have sent us some of the stuff, so.
Go get one for them.
Most of the values in the equipment inside, correct?
They do the equipment, that's part of it. You know, the EMS director had been looking for something closer to 250 at one point. And this has been what's been sort of brought down.
Yeah.
And eventually they fund some of their equipment out of their own expenses for the ambulances. You know, they also, it used to be that they would be, when they brought people to the hospital, they would be restocked by the hospital. That doesn't happen
Doesn't happen
anymore. So, it's a tough business. It's also, though, it can be a very lucrative business. You say, give it to the fire department. Why do they want it? It's a lucrative business. So we need to make sure that we look at it and properly run the whole thing. Not to say it's improperly run, but it's not funded right either. So,
We can make more money at it, Tom. Let's figure out how to do that.
All right, Mr. Trudell.
But no matter what you do, we've been fighting this ambulance problem for 5 years. At the time, we had a relatively new ambulance. The second one was 5, 6 years old, and the third one was on its last wheeze. So for 5 years, we fought this problem. So by now, the one that was brand new is 5 years old. You get 2 rebuilds on them. Well, you get 1 rebuild, basically. You get 5 years, you do a rebuild, and a 10-year mark, you do a rebuild. So the one that was new is due for rebuild. But we won't be able to afford to do that because that takes it out of service for some 6 to 9 months for a rebuild. And what they do is they jack up the box, they throw everything away, put a new cab engine tranny underneath it, bolt it back on, and you have a rebuild ambulance. This is only going to help us get to the point where he can make a decision about rebuilding an ambulance that's overdue. We've delayed it so long that one ambulance is basically stopped here.
Okay,
the gallows humor, if you will, I'm sorry to interrupt, is we always ask Dave, what about the new ambulance? And he'll say, you mean the 2006?
yes, Jeff.
I have a question, I'm just curious we're plugging holes, I guess, is on ambulance and police cruisers. Seems to me a few years ago we were saying we were in dire need of school buses, that if we didn't have a school bus, you know, we would stop operating, and yet all of a sudden that's gone quiet. Has a miracle occurred, or?
We just haven't been listening.
No, they've been able to, in the fall town meeting, we put some money aside to purchase buses. They also were able to purchase 2 more through the revolving fund, and now they're going to change part of the way they run them, so you need less buses. It hasn't been solved or cured, but it's now at what you would call almost a manageable level.
Good. Excellent.
I'm sure some of them are going to cringe at saying almost manageable, but that's...
Especially the parents within a mile.
Right, that's my spin on it. So.
Yes.
I have one different question, which maybe I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but you commented that you don't see 2015 any improvement, that you see will be in a similar situation in 2015 as we are here.
We've got one of the things in 2015 that will help us is obviously the hotel up and running. The split changes in the healthcare go from 70-30 to 67.5, 32.5, which is additional savings. But we don't have enough to offset the additional costs.
Don't have the 1.2 million.
Yeah, and if the way state aid has been coming in, that's going to be one of the big downfalls. And we're not getting the new growth. Don't forget, at one point where our new growth was $600,000 to $800,000 a year, we had a good year at 350. Now we're looking closer to 250 or 275 as being one of the high ones. That's right before the bubble burst, 2003, 4, 5, 6 were the high years for that.
If I may, this is a follow-up, I guess where I was going is at some point we should be looking, we being the town, should be looking at a little bit longer term, because I think things are going to get tighter and tighter. And I don't, we solved the immediate problem here, but we put off an awful lot of other things. And I don't have the answer, so don't misunderstand me. But somehow we've got to be looking beyond that and looking down the road to where are we going with all of these things. And I certainly don't have the answer, and I'm not sure that there are any easy answers, but if we don't look down the road, we're going to be getting ourselves in a worse and worse situation until, we eventually don't have any movement, any room for movement at all.
I could say.
Yes, ma'am.
To your comment about the new growth, I'm concerned about the impact of the loss of a FTE at the assessor's office, because my conversation with the assessor was that there's a lot of improvements in new growth that we've missed. So by losing more personnel there, have you talked to her about that? Is there do I want to say the intern word? Is there some way that she can get help? I don't know the answer to this. Sam just said, I don't have the answer. I can identify the problem. Any thoughts?
She has been given over $10,000 to have people come in and pick up all the new growth.
Good, thank you. That's a good answer.
Bingo.
On another subject, did anybody look at the news tonight about Detroit's on the verge of filing bankruptcy?
Yep.
They've been down here for like a...
Well, it's real, they're really knocking on the door right now. I think it's just the first of many that we're gonna see.
Oh, you got Stockton.
California's
Yeah.
falling off the map.
And I mean, how much do you think that the Boston Marathon cost the taxpayers of Massachusetts? I mean, it's things like that.
Stupefying.
It's things like that that keep coming our way, and we've got to start looking at we've got to really focus on some growth here in this town.
And new ways of doing business.
Exactly.
I'm going to put this to bed the best I can. 1998, there was a thing created called a master plan. I don't know if anybody's read it. I've got 5 or 6 copies of the master plan. It was laid out very nicely how we should do things. And if you go back and read that versus how we've done things obviously since 1998, you can see where we've made mistakes and what it's cost us. The other thing we have to deal with, and we've all seen, I think, more or less the 5-year plan, and it's not a pretty sight. One of the problems we deal with is a little bit of continuity in our leadership. If you have a master plan and you have people that buy into it all the way through, it's easier to accomplish what we need to accomplish as a town, as a town. That's the easiest way to put it. But when you have changes in leadership and there's a disagreement on what the master plan is, then this is why we're here. Part of the reason we're here, not all of the reasons, but obviously the economic issues involved. But we have not had a long-term plan that anybody has adhered to. It's like saying we don't have policies for certain things. We do have policies. We just don't follow the policies. We ignore policies. What we have to do, and I think this, and gosh, after all the months of getting red-faced and talking about the lack of effort of our selectmen have made a great deal of effort over the last, since April. They've done a great deal, and I think they're attacking the issues. They're looking at the financial situations where in the past they ignored the financial situation. So maybe this is the start of something that will now have our leadership maybe look back at the 1998 master plan, try to bring it up to date, and push it going forward. So that's my Pollyanna story of the evening.
I would like to.
Let's move on,
Thank you.
please. Okay, Derek, let's get back to you. Do you have any, okay, you've pretty much covered the impacts of schools and the town departments and capital needs. Do you have anything else?
Special town meeting?
Do you
Do we
want,
have that?
I think we've gone over the cruisers, the transfers.
Mhm.
We haven't really gone over the cruisers, you mentioned it.
Well, no, he's mentioned the cruises as to what he has. I mean, we can still vote on this, on these issues without Derek. I'm trying to move you along as much as I can, okay?
Will we get a copy of the special town meeting warrant?
It's right here. It's in your.
You know what, if I don't want my package.
Yeah, open up your package.
Holy moly.
Steady your mouth.
Hey, don't be mean to me today.
I'd love to say credit, but it's
Get
all
credit.
Kelly. So.
I guess, give it much work, too.
Right there. Thanks so much for that.
Okay,
Okay.
all right.
Yeah, okay.
Do we want to look at the special, well, we've got we can review the special town meeting warrant.
Well, do we need Derek for that?
Well, that was my point. I think I said that before. I'd like to move them along.
Okay.
Is there anything?
I'll just sit over at my little
Just,
corner.
I think the simple explanation, Article 1's the transfers. You know, I'm not joking here, that won't be something you'll see till sort of the last minute. We will need transfers, the police cruisers, the only money available for those would be from the stabilization fund, approximately $200,000 for 5 vehicles altogether, and that was with trading in some equipment. You may have to end up going down to 4 vehicles depending on what quotes we get. The ambulance, Article 3 is the authorization to purchase the ambulance. It will be funded in the FY14 EMS budget. And again, a line for capital will be added. The rest of the articles from 4 through 12 are collective bargaining. We do not have agreements on those right now. They're placeholders.
Okay.
And if you ask me whether we're going to have agreements or not, I can't tell you.
What's the money on the police cruiser?
Probably 200,000. So that would leave the stabilization fund at about 320,000. Article 13, purchase cover for WPCF equalization tank. That is actually, there was a town meeting article in which to deodorize, I believe,
Yeah.
the holding tank.
Yes.
And Mr. Campina has discovered what he believes to be a better way for it. And, but it's outside the scope of the previous article, so we felt it was appropriate to bring it back because it's such a change. And I think the moderator agrees with us on that one.
Will you be coming back?
Is it gonna be a lot more money, or is it?
I don't think the money is going to change on there, it's just,
Okay.
it's outside the scope of the article.
Okay,
Because I believe the article was for 400,000.
yeah.
But that's not coming, that's coming from the sewer enterprise.
Sewer enterprise.
Correct,
It's
yes.
just done,
Yeah.
Well,
That-
you're gonna bring the actual articles to us.
Right, this article has been brought forward from the sewer enterprise fund from the retained earnings. That was what it was voted out of in the fall. I believe that's when the article was done.
We can get Mr. Campina here to just
Yeah.
go over specifics, or
Really
do we want somebody here to talk to him? What makes most sense?
So,
Well,
Got the extended deadline, we hope.
yeah, we've got a deadline here, the things we have to get done. We can definitely put that on the list of
Question,
yes.
why would we want to talk to him? In terms, he's going to have to explain this at town meeting.
Exactly.
He's got to come up there and he's got to explain it At town meeting, he's either gonna say yes or no. I see no reason for us to bring him in when it's really gonna be coming out of the sewer enterprise fund.
How are we gonna,
And why?
how are we gonna vote on this?
We haven't even talked about the sewer price fund yet tonight. And I'm not ready to do that because I know he's gotta get home. So.
Okay.
The easement?
The easement is another water pollution control facility one. It is to grant the easement over town property so that somebody can tie in.
Oh, one category.
I have a question about one.
Mhm.
An easement, if the town grants an easement, let me ask you a question. It's free, correct? Why is it against the law for the town to lifetime lease it? Could you get money out of it? Because I want to say one thing here, don't anyone take this wrong. Whenever I see the word Cyrus Point, when the last time God wanted a loan, he went up there. That's how much money these people got. So I just thought that, why not lease them the land rather than give them a free easement and let the town make some money? You like that one, Dave?
How much did he borrow?
I don't know, God, he went to Cyrus Point to get the money, I heard, yeah.
Where's this place?
The best part of town, pal. You haven't been up there, you know. No, is it illegal for us to give a lifetime lease and charge them rather than give a free easement? It's town land, town owns it. You wanna use it, you gotta pay.
You can actually, can I take a stab at this?
Go ahead.
You could charge him. I mean, the easement doesn't have to be free. You
That's what I'm
can
getting.
get consideration for an easement if it's worth something.
Let's do it.
I think the question behind this would be, is the town requiring him to hook up to sewer? And if it is, and that's the only way he can get there, I think it's kind of incumbent on the town to let him do it. But I don't know the background history of this. But the quick answer is yes, you can charge. I think rather than lease, you would want to do an actual, because you want the easement to run with the property.
I just want the money, I don't care how we go around it, it doesn't matter. I mean, obviously, he wants to pipe it through the easement. It's probably gonna be cheaper than going all the way around or whatever. Obviously, you can plumb something around something. You know, it's probably easier and cheaper for him to connect to by going through town land, but I've charged the guy. I don't even know him. He lives on Cyrus Point, that's enough for me. Jealous.
We should have some of that stuff.
Mm.
Something to think about, right?
It is.
Okay. No matter where it is, I just think rather than give free easement, we should charge.
I appreciate the point. Number 15 is a petitioned article. It is to accept the layout of Rock Marsh Road. This is a private road. They're paying to upgrade their road to the town's minimum standards to be accepted as a town road. They will have to have had this work completed before town meeting for it to be voted upon.
Are they in good shape to do that?
Yes.
Is this
These people
by,
have been
is
here.
this by Cranberry Cottage down in the back there? That we said no to before?
Yes.
Yes, it's the same.
I believe previously they were looking to have Chapter 90 funds to upgrade their road. They've now saved the money to upgrade it themselves.
And now we'll have to plow it.
This is Rock Marsh Road. I was thinking of Marsh Road.
Can we go backwards a minute?
There's a joke there somewhere.
Yeah, there's not a joke there. and forgive me for not watching the selectmen's meeting last night. I understand there was two discussions that happened last night. The first one being is that they talked about the kiosk. And you wanna, and because that's Dom's favorite category, revenue, I thought maybe you would like to update us on the kiosk, because clearly there is a joke afterwards.
Yeah, we put out the bids for the kiosks. The bids were for 2 kiosks and 3 kiosks. We knew we had roughly $23,500 available for it. So if we put out for 3 and it was over, we'd have to rebid it. If we put out for 2 and it was too little, you'd have to rebid. So do a dual bid on there to see what you can get out of the people.
This is onset pier.
Yeah, for the onset pier. And we're able to get 3 kiosks for, it's about $21,500. The current revenue brought out of the pier is roughly $50,000. The estimate as to what the kiosk will bring in fees and enforcement is roughly $90,000 to $100,000 a year.
And what's the labor savings?
Clean up the beaches.
Well, a lot of, we used to use that with volunteers, but a lot of the senior work off as well, so. But it also frees up some of the police from being down there, and part of the plan is the harbor master legally can enforce parking, and they're already down there, so it frees up one of our police, and especially one of the operational commanders, the lieutenants, so it helps out a lot on there.
Frees the vehicle up too, right?
Yeah.
Here comes the joke. Ready?
No.
One of the problems I have with this is what Dom and I always argue about, so I'm gonna try to make this as simple as I can. I understand. I know, it is funny. We always argue
Don't let
about
him
this.
say that.
I understand the parking. I understand the kiosk. But before we put a kiosk in, we need to have policies and procedures on how we're going to manage this, not just how it looks like. We need to have something that says this is how we're collecting cash, this is where the cash goes, because if we don't have that, it drives me nuts. It's like halfway doing something. We need to have that done as well. Before a kiosk goes in, you know.
We don't need to have a study on it, we just need to
I don't want to
put it
study,
down.
I just want
This is how
somebody
where it's coming,
to
this
sit
is
down
where
and
it's
say,
going.
this is how we collect the cash, this is the time of days we collect, whatever it is. A policy and procedure manual on how to operate this, because if you don't, then you're not managing the money and money disappears. And I'm not saying anybody steals it, but money disappears. I remember calling a couple years ago and asking about, they had a big thing about putting buses over at Bay Point, and they were running people back and forth, and it was gonna increase our revenue. I asked how much, he said, about the same as last year. That's not an answer. I would love to see, I can't say I want to because I'm not, but I want to see policies or operating procedures for this, because that way we know we're controlling it, and there's a report coming out that if somebody, say like Mr. Trudell over there says, hey, how much money have we made from this? And you can pull out that report and say, this is how much money we made from parking versus what we did before.
And it's not just cash money, correct? Because
No,
there's,
it's credit cards.
It's credit
That's what I
cards,
mean about
yeah.
operating, because this is a totally different animal, and you just, you know, when you halfway do a project and say, oh, look, I'm gonna make $100,000. Well, how do you manage that $100,000? And let's make sure we're making that $100,000, and if we're not, let's see why. So, thank you. There's the joke.
Part of it is training on there, and the training's been added at no cost. The installation, we are installing it.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, we're installing the pads. and
Municipal
such.
maintenance?
Yes.
Yeah.
If we had them install it, besides the costs increasing, you would go into a different procurement matter. The fun thing about these is you are literally putting them on there, bolting them down, and they're wireless, 3G wireless, they're solar powered. You have a web login where you can track everything, so you can go from any terminal, you don't need a direct link up on there. Part of it as well is we are not doing bills in there, so we call it paper money, but really cloth money technically, on there. In a humid environment, front by the sea, we spoke down to the people down in St. Pete's in Florida. They said, whatever you do not get the bills. It's a disaster. They bring the moisture and get all clogged up. So it will be coin and then the debit. Also, during the hours that the harbor master's office is open, one of the policies we're going to have to develop, what we've been thinking about, is having a small change machine in there. I prefer a change machine and in a facility that can be locked up. I believe we should also have a sign that all these are emptied at a certain time at night on there.
I have an estimate of when this is gonna happen.
Within 30 days, so I'd say by June 15th.
Well,
For you.
wait a few damn bean counters, it's still gonna be there, okay?
monies to fund this.
Oh, Jeff across this table.
The monies to fund this came from the community events.
I think this is great, and I
I
think
do
it's
too.
gonna, you know, it's gonna help the businesses in our
There's a lot
city.
of change machines out there
Yeah,
that are secondhand. We bought them recently for the laundromat.
yeah,
That's pretty good. You gotta, if you do look into the used ones, you gotta make sure it has the new chip for the new bills.
Okay.
We bought stupid, you know, they look into it, and I don't go buy another chip. It would only take bills of certain ones, it wouldn't take the newer style ones.
Okay.
Just so you know, just something to know.
okay.
Yeah, so I'd send some of the guys from municipal maintenance over there one night to pick it up from your place.
Sure, yeah. Like a little problem. At least that's the one that I do.
Good work.
Okay,
Very good.
all right.
Thank you,
Here's
man.
Marilyn wants one more shot at it.
But, no, quick question, just, we're going to get to our time frame afterwards, but, the town administrator and the moderator, what is the procedure for drawing up the motions? I would like to be involved. Not that I want to do more work, but I do not want to sit at the town auditorium and make a motion that does not have a verb in it. So, I literally had to read something that said, to do something without I move to, yes, I would like to just have eyes on more than 15 minutes before I sit on the stage. So let me, just shoot me an email, get me in the loop when it gets closer.
Frank, cover your ears. The finance committee used to do the motions.
I know that. Not since I've been on the finance committee, but prior to that, they did, and I think that we should do them again.
Yeah.
So,
Music to my ears.
yeah, I'll volunteer this time around
Oh, to write the motions?
to work with someone to write the motions.
Done that in
Thursdays?
perpetuity.
Huh?
Done that in
You know what,
perpetuity.
Thursdays?
I'll help, what the heck.
Okay,
Okay, that was it.
Y'all.
all right.
Run.
Derek, thank you for
Thank you.
everything.
Thank you. Have a good night,
No? How about, we're gonna, timelines, let's go to this special town meeting timeline.
Let me get out my calendar.
Marilyn, you wanna run through these for me, please?
But Tuesday, May 14th, the warrant is officially closed. Wednesday, we received it, yay, those two are done. Wednesday, May 29th is the last day for us to vote on warrant articles.
2 weeks.
Okay.
Okay.
Friday, May 31st,
Which is 2 days.
yep, to provide our recommendations to Kelly. And we'll take a quick look at these afterwards, but I don't think that they're vastly different
No.
than things we've done in the past.
No.
We don't have that many of them either, so.
Yep. June 4th, the warrant goes to the printer. And then June 18th is the town meeting.
Okay. Now, when do you guys wanna vote on the articles on the special town meeting?
We only have 2 weeks, so.
Exactly.
You know
Exactly.
what you said, from 4 to 12,
Is the
a
40?
simple vote.
Yeah, exactly.
Most of them are a one-shot deal, they're all the same thing.
Is anyone up for voting on these now?
I have to leave.
Pardon? Oh, I'm sorry.
It's okay. I'm glad you're sorry.
Well, I am. Okay,
Can we,
can we what?
I'm moving on Wednesday to the town meeting. This is my next
hot steak?
Good night, Tony.
I don't know.
Do folks want to vote on these next week?
I would vote on these next week, would be my opinion. Give me a little bit of time to digest, because there's two that kind of stick out to me. One
The
being,
police cruisers and the ambulance. That's
well, not the
those are
ambulance,
two.
the ambulance is
The
all right.
ambulance is- yeah.
Could we have some discussion, just a few minutes of it now further than what we said, so that I'll have more to think about during the week, and then we can...
You want more discussion on this?
No, I just, well, let's I'm just kind of, all right, I'll make my comment. I'm just
No,
kind of rocked.
Go ahead,
no,
get it
go
out.
ahead.
I know what you're
No,
gonna
Go
say.
ahead, go ahead.
I'm just rocked by, this is the first I've heard of spending 200,000 from stabilization. I fought so hard for the first year on FinCom
We
to get
did.
money. We did.
We did.
We dug in our heels and fought tooth and nail for that money. And I know it's there to be spent eventually for something we desperately need, but this is not the correct way to say it, but I'm really pissed off that this is what it's going. Not that we don't need cruisers, just that to fund them this way is just bothering me. There, I'm done.
You can have your comment, and the chair would like to make a statement as
You want me
well.
to stand back? Go ahead, you
No,
wanna
no,
make yours
no,
first?
no, no.
What, ladies first?
Okay, I like that. Okay, listen, the police cruisers. What bothers me with the police cruisers, the entire police budget bothers me because this budget, the current police chief has been given a budget and every single year he exceeds it. Now, there's a lot of money being wasted in this particular department. There's a lot of meetings that the chief goes to, that he brings his little friends with to, that there's no need for them to go. They have meals, they stay over. There's a lot of money that's being spent up there that isn't being watched. The police cruisers, I know we need the police cruisers, but the ones that we got, I mean, these guys really beat the crap out of them. And we bought Dodge Chargers. Who buys Dodge Chargers for cruisers? Not many folks do. They have been a maintenance nightmare.
I
Yeah,
thought
but
we bought- I thought we bought
in the
one.
lease, so their maintenance
We
included.
bought the maintenance with them.
Oh,
bought the
okay,
maintenance
all right,
package,
that's
so
not
that
good.
doesn't
It's
bother
not,
me.
they're not.
Well, that doesn't bother me because we're not paying for it.
No, okay.
Maybe the
Very
downtime
good
does.
point.
The downtime could.
Very good
You want-
point.
You want to?
It bothers me this
Right.
this $200,000 is coming in. It bothers me when the police department budget in itself has been mismanaged. So,
No, I get it.
that's the best way I could say that. Probably get a ticket tomorrow.
All right. You ready?
Yeah.
I am not gonna be nearly as controversial on this. My big issue, and I know they need police cars, and I've said one of the reasons we rejected the budget is because we had capital needs. And this to me is a capital need. I don't agree with the Chargers, and I believe that there are several discussions that need to happen before they're bought. One is, what are we buying? Because the Chargers clearly didn't last very long. They weren't, whatever reason. I mean, you want to say they're driven like police cars. Well, they are driven like police cars. So, but that has to happen too, because if we're not going to buy good quality cars, then that's a $225,000 that's really not benefiting us as much as we like. The second thing is, these cars are driven by police officers, not the police chief. And we want it also, if we don't have police cars, then we can't patrol the towns. And there's several issues with this. The other side of this that concerns me is the stabilization fund. Because once you start taking money from a stabilization fund, then you continue the process. We don't have any money, we're coming back to the stabilization fund. The reason it's there is when you go out to bond, people see that we are making an effort to put money back. And now we're going to take, not half, but a good chunk of money out of that to fund this. And so I'm a little concerned with the methodologies. That's why I'd like another week to sit down and give it a thought, because I want the cars, but I don't know that I'm willing to sacrifice money from the stabilization, especially since we're not putting any in this year.
Well, you said it nicer than I did. That my concern
And I'm
is
a
that
nicer person sometimes.
I'm not going to respond to that.
Let's not put that
You want to take a vote on that one, Larry?
You are.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to 0.
I voted for me.
Okay,
My
5 to 1.
concern with what Larry said and what I was trying to say is the stabilization fund is there for a rainy day. This is something we know we need, but this is something that we're going to need next year, the year after. Replacing police cruisers is ongoing, it always happens. This drawing from the stabilization fund isn't a good way to pay for it. Go ahead.
This was exactly my feeling, and you stuck your finger on it. I see things getting tighter and tighter in the next few years, not improving. So if we're using the stabilization fund now to do this, what the blazes are we gonna do a year or two out?
Go ahead.
And I concur with you 100%. And if I felt, I mean, you can name numerous items that, and it's not the police officers themselves, because trust me, those police officers, they work their tails off, and every dime they get, they deserve. I have nothing, but we have mismanaged money in this particular department. We had those jet skis out flying around. I mean, we have harbor master people that we pay a third of what we pay those police officers to fly around on Saturday and Sunday. Now ATVs, they fly around it. It's not only the hourly cost. I mean, what can they do? What can they do on a jet ski, a police officer? Number one. Number two, the gas to run these. I just think there's been some poor decisions made, and at least half of this, $200,000, the chief could have found in his own budget, $100,000.
But I'll leave it as
You wanna go first?
Oh, I have something I would like to say. In saying that, you know, the jet skis or the four-wheelers, you know, whatever we got through grants or something free, yes, they cost us gas and things, but they could make money if the guys would write tickets. People with a vehicle on the beach write a ticket. Someone doing something wrong and you're on the thing. The police force, I believe, should be ticketing a lot more. And they can ticket on the water, they can ticket off-road, they need to make money. They want all these toys, they want everything to be more aggressive on the tickets. Just like they do in Florida. Some towns, 50% of the revenue are tickets.
Oh no, she's looking at you.
Look at Matapoiset.
It's the same way. They ticket to death.
I want to respond to Donna just because I
Okay.
think you want to compare apples to apples. You're concerned about the mismanagement of funds within the department. Number one is really more on the day-to-day operations, which we're not supposed to be dealing with. But reality is, he's proposing a $231,000 cut to the police budget. Those are the kind of items that should be affected within the budget, not reduction of patrolmen. That's separate from the cruisers. So I think the cruisers we really believe is a necessity. So that I would put on the town side elsewhere for spending. But to your concerns, that should be part of this 231 that's being reduced. Obviously, our town administrator feels that there's some room within that budget to be reduced. I don't like the fact that it's personnel, but
Alright,
that's
well,
his choice.
Okay, so let's, deep breath. Most of the things that we're talking about, and again, this is a discussion that I don't feel comfortable having as a finance committee because, well, for me personally, because I don't want to take it tomorrow.
Yeah.
The issue here for me is that I think we have to trust that our town administrator is going to keep the line on the budget, where in the past that may not have been the case. It's been allowed to overspend, if you will, but at this point, I don't think that that's happening with our town administrator. So we have to trust that he's going to hold the line on that. Well, I have to trust. Okay, you don't have to
No,
trust.
I'm just, look at the record
I
for the
know,
last
I know.
3 years.
But 3 years ago,
The budget, what was
3 years
happening.
ago, he wasn't the town administrator.
Okay.
But he is now, and I think he's going to hold the line on the budget, which is what should be done. The other side of that, it may be dismal looking in the future, but we're getting a hotel. Along with that hotel will come other businesses. So there are revenue streams we're talking about. We are now starting to see our leadership take a little bit of initiative. We're seeing parking kiosks, we're seeing hotels come in. There are several things that are happening. So as dismal as it looks in 2015, because we really don't have estimates on all those, when you start pouring those numbers, and maybe that's a revenue stream that, as he says, that we can use for capital. Maybe there are some other issues. So maybe 15 is not as dismal when you look, say 6 months from now, look at 15 versus the way we're looking at now. And it could still be, but my issue is the stabilization fund, more or less. We need the cruisers, but I think there's got to be another way to get them than out of the stabilization fund, or at least the entire amount. So that's why I would prefer, we don't vote on that tonight at all.
Right,
That discussion has to be had again.
David?
That's gonna hit me.
Three of us looked at the Quinn bill earlier. I, for one, am not gonna bring that up.
Okay.
Okay.
However,
Well, like we
she's
said,
correct.
however.
That stabilization fund at $500,000 looks like a lot of money. It's rinky dink. And,
Of course.
and to put things into perspective about how things worked, when they brought that mall in, the then chairman of the finance committee had already spent $1 million in the previous year before it came online and that year. So to explain to you, $1 million dropped into the budget had absolutely zero effect. And I know that is like beyond conception how you can take in an additional $1 million worth of revenue and it just gets dissipated. So when we talk 100,000 here, we talk a couple 100,000 there, you try and split that out between the school and the town, and you get 35% out of 300,000, you picked up $100,000. You know, if you look at it that way, it's nothing.
I understand.
And that stabilization fund, when we had nothing, it affected our borrowing capacity.
I agree.
And, you know, $200,000 is 40% of that stabilization fund.
It's huge.
And frankly, it doesn't take much of an emergency to gobble up $100,000 and some thousand. I don't want to touch that stabilization fund because long term, the way I see it is, next year's not going to be any better than the year after. Both sides of the equation, the school and the selectmen, are going to do everything they can next year to go for Proposition 2.5. Because they're setting it up this year, both on the school side and the town side. And that's where you'll be next year. You'll be looking for money. And for my purpose, stabilization has to stay where it is, because any money that we generate is just going to feed healthcare and pensions. It's not really going to solve any problems.
No, because our pensions continue to.
So in essence, it better come out of operating funds if they want cruisers, because I can't see anything else.
Yeah, absolutely.
Can I ask a question? What is the policy on the stabilization fund? Even if the town votes to take it out of stabilization fund, does not the finance committee have to? approve
No.
it?
That's town meeting.
Town meeting has,
Okay,
Yeah.
so we only get the emergency
We get the reserve.
reserve,
That's
okay.
our money.
All right.
stabilization is down. I just believe that every department should be held to their budget.
And I agree with you 100%, Madam Chair. But then again, if you know you need something and you have the means to get it, you should go after it. Okay, they have $200,000 on roughly 365 days a year. You're talking $500 or $600 a day. You mean to tell me police can't write $500 or $600 tickets in a day? That's what? 4 or 5 tickets, 5 tickets?
Live in a town.
Oh, forget about Massachusetts. See someone talking about New York, Rhode Island, New Jersey, take it. They're not gonna come back and fight it.
Oh my gosh.
It's done all the time in Florida.
Hold it. This is the same guy telling me about
Yeah.
trash pickup on the beaches.
Yeah.
That's why we're
Bringing
money
tourists in
to
here, and in the same breath, he's
Well, I
saying,
want them here, because if they come, they
write
buy
tickets,
tickets.
they won't come back to fight it.
All
Done.
right.
Thanks,
Okay.
brother. I love you too.
I love you too.
Okay, let's, all right, if you wanna agree to wait and vote on the articles next week, we'll vote on the articles next week. But I'd like to get through them as quickly as possible, and if anybody has any new information, let's not regress everything that we've had just
Well,
today.
4 through 12, we're just gonna vote no action, correct?
Well, you don't know that. Well, yeah, that's
Yeah,
right.
those ones are all
There's
that.
nothing we
That's
can do
all
about it.
the
So
places.
you only have 6 to vote on.
Exactly.
1 through 3, and
We can't
then...
vote on the budget transfers because they're not gonna give them to us till the day of, so.
Yes.
I have a question. Should we look at, if we look at something like the police cruisers and say, no, we don't want it out of the stabilization, Are we in a position where we have to either say we wouldn't buy the cruisers or we'd get it from another source, or can we just say, no, we wouldn't get it from the
We
stabilization?
wouldn't get it from the stabilization.
What's the article say? Available funds, a sum of money, so it could come from somewhere else. According to the way the article's written, it doesn't say the stabilization fund, so it can be got from some other fund.
Why are we not
Okay.
looking to borrow this?
What?
Why?
I don't know, that's a
I
question
mean,
we
we're
need to
not,
ask him.
right
I
now,
really-
our debt is fairly low.
It's 2.5 million, I think. Does that sound right?
We have room on the credit card.
We have room on the credit
We
card.
have room on the credit card.
You don't want to borrow money because if you borrow money,
Yeah.
even with $500,000 in stabilization, most likely will drop 2 points down on
Already.
the credit rating.
We're that
That's why-
close?
That is why they want to use the stabilization fund, so please use to pay for them now, because you won't have to borrow. And stabilization money can be used for capital assets, not an operating expense. Although to me, these cruisers really should be an expense on that.
But next year when we go to borrow, we only have $300,000 in the
It won't make
stabilization.
any difference on the credit rating, so.
Alan, how much over budget is the police budget right now?
I'm not sure what it is. I know that we've actually been getting monthly reports starting.
That's the other
About
He's
how much?
already, you have to understand, the police department has been cut back in the last 3 years, a substantial amount of money each year. So even though the budget went up back around 2010, and everything that went up has been cut back down. They're actually, I think they're a little below what they were back in 2010.
How much
Before they
over?
had the raise.
My,
I don't know if he's gonna be over or not. They've been cutting and they've been doing stuff, because Derek has the numbers come in, and Derek's letting them know that you're too high right now, and we'll see how it ends up. We might be over, but it's not going, I don't believe we're gonna be like last year, we had $200,000. And as you go forward into 2015, every month you have, by the 15th of the following month, we'll have a statement.
Right.
but how far
You know,
over
where
budget
we're at.
were we last year exactly? Just on the police budget?
I don't know the numbers, I heard that, I don't have an accurate number. I thought they may have been 200,000 over, but I wouldn't hold anybody.
It's a lot more than that.
No, it's not more than that.
No,
No?
it wasn't.
No.
But we made some transfers.
Were you gonna contribute something to that?
I did on that particular article, I know you said that you want the finance committee to write a motion on it. If you were to write a motion to borrow, that would be outside of the scope of the article.
Okay.
So you need to be very careful when you know, if your intention is to write,
It's from available funds.
you have to stay within the scope of the article.
Okay, thank you. All right,
Okay.
have we set enough on these? So we're gonna come back next week and vote on these?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
Public hearing, do we have to have a public hearing?
Yes, we do.
Public hearing on the special town meeting warrant.
Okay.
Kelly has her calendar.
Well, if we're gonna vote on them before the 29th,
Well, I think we need to, well, we have time, but.
We're gonna vote on it, next week is going to be the 22nd, right?
no, next week, yeah, the 22nd, right?
22nd.
Okay.
Can we vote on them and have the public hearing as well?
Is that enough
No
time?
one
to
shows
publish
up
it?
for the public
Well,
hearing.
we're going out of the 29th.
No one ever
I'd
comes.
have to put the ad in tomorrow, Friday.
Okay, so we have to have a meeting on the 22nd and the 29th.
Maybe it won't be a long one.
Okay.
How many public hearings have we ever had that someone's
Unless we
actually
meet.
asking a question?
After that. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't know if we're gonna do that.
Okay, well, no, oh, hold on, because the special town meeting is on the 18th, right?
Yep, we got 4 weeks before that.
Yeah, but we only have 2 weeks to finish up what we have.
Yeah.
But
You have to
we
have
could
14
have
days,
after.
14 days before town meeting commences.
Mhm.
Okay, so when could we have the one, okay, when should we have the,
If it has to be
Open
14
meeting.
days
If it
before,
has to be
29th
14 days
is
before,
our
it's gonna be the 20th.
Yeah, it would be short,
29th.
it would be short a day, so we
is it
have,
29?
so
All
we
right,
have to do it.
So we're gonna have to look, next 2 weeks, we're gonna have the meetings.
Okay.
So we'll vote on the 22nd and we'll have a public hearing on the 29th.
You know, that's a vacation week. for a lot of people,
Yeah,
so,
as long as we have a quorum.
Dom especially.
You're on vacation, Dom?
It's the Speedo to the beach weekend.
That's a sign that I could
Larry, I wouldn't talk about speedos. I look about as good a speedo as you do.
Oh, I agree.
Okay,
Like an ugly slave.
Don't put that in the minutes. Do not put that in the minutes.
Yeah, don't put that in there.
We have it on tape.
okay, so, okay. So
We're up to F.
we're up to, yeah,
Sewer enterprise, oh boy. Do you want me to do this real fast, or we,
wait a minute, where,
sewer enterprise?
oh, yeah, what is that?
Okay, so here's the thing, I understand the selectmen last night took a vote to have a forensic audit of the sewer enterprise fund.
That's a good.
The retained earnings, part portion of it, which, based on the discussions that were going on before I even got to the FinCom, and now the discussions, this is like, what, 5 years too late?
We've been asking
basically?
for this for 5 years, so.
And one of the things you notice I know no one here, we're not gonna have a lot of time to talk about it, so I'll make it quick. In the audit report for 2012, when you go through, the first thing you understand is that enterprise accounting is different than municipal accounting.
Correct.
It's more towards
Business.
a private business type accounting, so you have a balance sheet, you have an income statement, and you have a cash flow. And there's several items that stick out. One is depreciation, which is we had this discussion the other day, is a non-cash item. So immediately, if you're counting as an expense on your income statement and you're removing it on your cash flow, that means that $2.6 million of depreciation falls down through, and it obviously comes under cash because it's a non-cash item. Depreciation is a number you book. You don't actually cost you the money, if you will. So then the other side of that you want to look at is when you look at the balance sheet, you see the cash accounts, cash and cash equivalents. And we have a huge number in there, like I think it's $8 million, and I think I'd have to look it up, a little over $8 million in a cash and cash equivalents. So now we have the problem of how much of that is depreciation, how much of that is betterments that were prepaid. And so I'm kind of glad in the way that the selectmen have decided to have someone come in and do a forensic audit, because we need to know what is a restricted retained earning, what we can't touch, and what we can touch. And so I just wanted to bring that out. I know that we'll get a copy of the audit report and we can look at it later, but I think last night was a step that was maybe 5 years too late, but at least it's a step in the right
It's a step in
direction.
the right direction,
Because
so
we-
we'll have some comfort level for that money that's in there.
I'm
We know the
sick.
money's in there, we don't know whether it's real, what it came from.
And I'm sick of looking at this and seeing two line items. This is
Yeah,
not the way to
no.
manage an enterprise fund for $6.8 million.
No.
We need to, and I don't know if anybody remembers the meeting, the selectmen meeting when they set the EDU rate, and Guy Campina came up and said, well, this is my best guesstimate. We shouldn't be setting the EDU rates based on guesstimates. We should have numbers in front of us so we can get a better feel for that. So this is a big step in the right direction, and what I'd like to see from Derek in the future, and obviously not right away, is financial statements for the sewer enterprise fund so that we can properly discuss and look at the numbers.
Oh, well,
That's it.
we're gonna have, hopefully we're gonna have elected sewer officials too, so.
Yeah, but they're not gonna be able to run until next
No,
year.
Right,
so-
and they will need these numbers to step
They're
into.
gonna need
They
these
have
numbers to step into.
Right, this is gonna be good for them to
I
have
think, I
something.
think it's gonna be an eye-opening experience when that
Yeah.
audit comes through. I think we'll all, I'm dying to find out how much money we made on grease.
Yeah. Well, that's easy. I think when you look at the revenue numbers, Guy can almost tell you what he's made
That's,
on
yeah, I was
grease.
gonna say, that's the easy
It's
one.
when you get into how much of that money that's sitting out there can we use for
Yeah.
equipment, if you will, and how much of it we can't, because in the past,
Okay,
DOR has warned us about using money from the retained earnings, and we have done that in the past, from what I can see from the financial statement. So this will give us, we need to manage this enterprise fund. It's not just two
Preach
line
to the
items.
choir, Larry.
okay,
We
yeah,
know that.
yes,
But
yeah.
I wasn't here when the preaching was doing
Okay.
before. so-
Okay, all right.
New preacher.
All right, the next item is open positions on the FinCom. We have one letter from September McCarthy. I suggested we invite her in next week and
She's still
interview
interested, this was
her.
a year
Yes,
old.
she is.
She is still interested, okay.
We may have at least one more, maybe maybe 2.
Well,
And I'm working on it,
we gotta get them in here,
okay?
okay? I've always gone under the presumption that, I will be casting the vote because I will be chairman by the 30th, but I try to go with whom the board suggests to me. But, we've got 3 key people leaving, and if David moves out, we'll have
Is
4
David
people.
moving out?
Ask his wife.
I'm not talking to his wife.
Yeah,
No.
his house is for sale.
There's the correct statement, my house is for sale.
But you're not leaving the FinCom at this point.
That is correct.
Okay, that's all I want to know.
However,
However, if your house sells, you'll be out the door so fast you won't even say goodbye?
well, I have to say goodbye. The question is, I don't know where I'm going at this point. I'm looking for something that,
Not on a private road.
that too, Doc. No, I'm looking for something where they clean your driveway and mow your lawn.
Condominium.
Oh,
Getting to that stage where
I'm already there.
taking a four-wheel drive vehicle that's hung up on a snowbank out has lost its glory.
Okay, so we agree that we'll have Mrs. McCarthy in.
Yes.
Okay, if anybody has anyone else in the next few days, let Kelly know,
All right, Kelly.
and we'll invite them in as well. Okay, new business.
John, just on that, I would like to throw it open to the public. I have been letting people know, and I know it's been on, I think it's posted on the town website.
Yeah, I told Shirley about it, 6,
All right.
8 weeks
I
ago.
took a billboard out.
Did you?
I haven't really, but I've
Pretty
been,
much,
I've been in vague mode.
Well, if anybody's listening out there, we need you. We need people for the finance committee. So,
All right.
please contact the selectman's office and fill out a form, and we will have you in and interview you. Anything on the new business of anticipation? Yes, Madam Moderator.
Since Mrs. Donahue brought up that the FinCom would like to take over the writing of the motions.
No, assist with. I don't think I
I
said
think
take
the word
over.
assist, she did use the
Assist.
word assist. Don't try to push that one all the way out.
Derek was the one with the plank.
I'm sorry.
Oh, I was just gonna say, I mean, it's, because we still have articles that haven't come, I don't know if there'll be any changes to those motions because of the changes in the budget. So it's just something you should keep in the back of your mind, that those also may have to be looked at.
I would just like to work with
For the regular
whoever's
town
doing
meeting?
it now.
We meet on Thursday afternoons.
Okay.
I'll get the time.
You can hook up with Claire and find out the time.
I have no desire to take it over, but I'd like to be in the loop so that when changes are made, sadly, we've been getting those motions as we walk on the stage. And
I
I
go
go
to
to
4
read it.
o'clock on a day off.
Yeah, and it's just not working for me, so I
understand.
thank you.
Okay,
Thursday afternoons,
does it,
cookies?
anybody have liaison report? We do have to appoint a new member to the planning committee as well. You might want to wait till you get all your new members in.
Yeah, let's,
Okay, but Frank was our... Okay, approval of the meeting minutes, April 3rd.
You gonna go with this application?
Pardon? Am I gonna
no,
go?
no, that's next week.
I'm sorry, thank you.
Okay.
We'll do them all at once, or you have to do them
Well, individually, I entertain a motion for the minutes of April 3rd.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor of approval of the minutes of the meeting of April 3rd, 2013?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained?
I think I'm on.
Okay. I'd like a motion from the minutes of April 10th.
Second.
Somebody moved it, you just
Oh,
moved it.
So moved.
There you go.
Okay, second.
Second.
All those in favor of approval of the minutes of April 10th, 2013?
Aye.
All those opposed? Abstentions? Okay, unanimous. And I'll entertain a motion from April 17th.
So moved.
Second.
Sorry.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? All abstained?
You know what, I've got minutes to give to Kelly, I don't think I have them with me this year.
All right, and the next meeting date is going to be a week from here at the same place.
Not tonight.
And I would entertain a meeting, motion for adjournment.
Someone.
Second. All in favor?